Or are we already live?
We're live right now, yeah.
There we go.
Yep.
We're live.
Yeah, we're live. Sorry, guys. We're having some technical difficulties, some wind difficulties here, too. But GigEm247 is out here at Kyle Field. Joseph Hastings, Karels after Texas A&M's 10-3 playoff loss against Miami. Carter, I mean, where do we even start with this one? There's many places you can go. Just share with me your kind of post-game reactions and thoughts on this one.
Yeah, a lot of thoughts. I think the biggest takeaway today, I mean, when you give up 10 points, you can't really fault the defense. Obviously, it didn't go well against the run. Special teams were pretty disastrous, but this game is on this offense. And in a lot of ways, for starters, Marcel Reed, I thought he really struggled. I mean, had the 2 picks. His completion percentage probably wasn't crazy. It was, I think, 25 to 39, but it was even the passes he completed were inaccurate. I mean, it just seemed a little jumpy today. But also, you could say that A&M asked a lot out of them because, number one, they couldn't run the ball, had under 100 yards rushing, and 2, they gave up 7 sacks. So, I mean, yes, Marcel Reed had a bad game, but so did everyone else on this offense. You get Moss back, you're thinking, man, he could really do something for you. He ends up with 20 yards. He re-aggravates the left ankle injury, and, this offense just cannot run the football. And I think when you lose a game like this and you lose the Texas game the way that you did, it's hard not to look at the season as a whole and say, of course, at the end of the day, it's a positive season. It's a step forward. But just how much of a step forward was it? I mean, you played a weak schedule. You beat a lot of bad teams. Hey, they still won 11 games. Got to give them credit. The Notre Dame win was huge.
Yeah.
But to lose to Texas and to go 1-0 in the playoff, after everything you did the first 11 games of the season, it just feels like you left some meat on the bone there. And this offense, dating back to the Texas game, a big reason why. And there are questions now with, we'll get into kind of the bigger picture later, but there are a lot of questions heading into this offseason. This was kind of the year for A&M. Now, of course, they could come back here and like they recruit well. They're going to go after it in the portal, but you think of how many seniors they had on this team. You think of how many draft picks they had on this team that will be leaving. This was the year, this was the schedule for them to really do something, and to lose to your rival, to lose 1-0 in the playoff, it just leaves you with a sour taste in your mouth.
Absolutely does. Let's break it down a little bit. It was a scoreless first half. Marcel Reed had that fumble. I mean, that was a tough one. It was a tough position to put him in. You all see the win. If you were in the stadium, you could feel it.
Yep.
To have him rolling out left, when he's a right-handed quarterback and with that type of pass rush, I know they couldn't get the run game established, but that was early in the game. It felt like, maybe not the best play call there. And I think after the Mario Craver, big reception, there were some questionable play calls there. What'd you see in that first half that kind of stood out to you in particular?
Yeah, I felt like, it was one disaster after another. They were actually moving the ball pretty well. 4 of their drives in the first half, they went inside the 40-yard line of Miami.
Nearly 200 yards of total offense to Miami, 69 in that first half.
Yeah, I mean, like the first half from just like a yardage perspective and how well are they moving the ball, like they looked like the better team, but they kept squandering every opportunity they had. They had the 22-yard field goal from Zirkle that, you look on him, it's kind of like he scraped the ground and then he kicked the ball, making the trajectory way too low, and Bain just easily blocks the kick. So you had that. You had the fumble. We talked about the fumble. It was one of those where it felt like Reed just hung onto the ball way too long. He needed to get rid of it. There was no play to be made there. And he held on. Finally, it's like he tried to throw it away and gets hit and leads to the fumble. And, what happens if that doesn't happen? There's so many plays like that where, they would move the ball, they would get in a good position, and then they just kind of self-destruct. Think of the Trey Zune penalty where, what was it, a 4th and 6, I think, at the 40 or so, and Miami calls a timeout because A&M's going for it, and to have a false start out of a timeout at home.
Yeah.
And you think of this too, like, you know, they used a silent, or they used a hard count, and so they were trying to draw Miami offsides out of a timeout, and it was Trey Zune who went offsides, and Trey Zune's had an awesome season. He, first team All SEC. He'll be a draft pick. For someone like that, your captain, to do that in that moment, man, it's really tough. And 3 turnovers on the day, and only getting I think 1 maybe. So turnovers is another thing. And this team just, we'll talk about the defense later, but they haven't gotten enough turnovers. Yeah. And over the last 4 or 5 games, Marcel Reed's just turned the ball over way too much. Puts the ball in harm's way. Even on that final drive before his interception, he should have been picked off, but it snuck through a guy's hands, and Nate Borkerter caught it. So many turnover-worthy plays for this team, and so offensively, there's just so many problems. It is, you got whipped up front, you can't run the ball, your quarterback underwhelmed, he's putting the ball in harm's way, you can't kick a 22-yard field goal. I mean, it's hard to put much on this defense because it's like, hey, you scored 3 points. Yeah. And you give Miami credit because that front is incredibly impressive. They've got 2 first-round picks up there. Ruben Bain had an absolutely amazing game. 3 sacks for him, I think 4 TFLs. He was as advertised. And, Miami played a great game, but it's hard not to feel like this was a game that A&M should have won just because of that first half. It really looked like A&M was the better team, and it just kept self-destructing. And then Miami, we'll talk about it in a little bit, they finally realized, hey, giving the ball to Mark Fletcher is kind of a good idea, and maybe A&M's run defense isn't all that great. Yeah. So that's what they did in the second half, and A&M just couldn't answer back.
You said this is a game that A&M should have won, and they did win this game earlier this year against Auburn. And Jay Bateman, defensive coordinator, now headed to Kentucky, compared Miami to a more talented Auburn team, in terms of what they did offensively. But they were only able to put up 10 points. A&M defense was able to hold them. The offense is what didn't come through today. And you look at the turnovers, the fumble, the interception early in the second half, and then at the end of the game there. What you see on that? That's the play, right? That everyone's going to be coming back to, right? Even though they had their chances throughout the game, you're 5 yards out, opportunity to tie the game, go to overtime. At that point, A&M would feel good about the momentum they've established. What happened there, and is it kind of emblematic of what we've seen from Marcel these past few weeks?
I didn't get the best look, admittedly, because I was on the field and kind of at a weird angle. It looked like there were a lot of defenders around. It was one of those tight windows that he had to kind of squeeze it in, and he just didn't. And accuracy has been a problem for Reed. I think that, even just right off the jump, right, the first drive of the game, you're thinking, oof, man, even the passes he's completing, it's to a guy's feet. Like, you think of the Casey Concepcion one, they ended up ruling it incomplete, where if he just gets it on the money, is that a touchdown? Is it a bigger play? Who knows? I think the thing with this offense that sticks with me is just how streaky it is. There are times throughout this year, this offense has looked absolutely incredible. I mean, you think of Notre Dame, the Mario Craver touchdown on the sideline. You think of Arkansas, where it's just they can't be stopped. But
second half against LSU.
Second half LSU. Second half South Carolina. But then you've got the first half against South Carolina. You've got the Auburn game. You've got the Texas game. You've got this game. And, you'll see it with Reed, too, where there'll be stretches where he's like 1 for 8, and you're like, man, is this guy going to complete a pass? And then he'll go 10 for 10 with 130 yards and a touchdown. You're like, this guy's the best quarterback ever, right? So it's just that consistency that has not been there, even with all the points this team has scored, all the yards. 10 of their 13 games, they had 400 plus yards, they had 30 plus points. And so, like, all in all, it was more good than bad. But when they played the really good defenses, when they played the Miami, Texas, Auburn defenses, they did not hold their own. And so you wonder, okay, you can do it against Arkansas, you can do it against LSU without Weeks, but can you do it against the elite? And that's unfortunate because, I did feel like their O-line had been pretty great all season. And to give up 7 sacks, to not be able to run the ball, you put it on Reed, but also it's not like he was in a position to really succeed in this game because no one else really did anything. I thought, Craver had a great game. I got to give him some credit because that long pass, that long catch he did an incredible job kind of rerouting and tracking that ball in the air, made a really good catch. If you saw the replay, you'd know what I mean, but it was a hard one to bring down. I thought he was good. He had the spin move again that he likes to use, and he was effective. Concepcion got hammered on that punt, and it just seemed like he wasn't the same after that. I think he may have hurt his knee too during the game. He wasn't okay after that. Kept playing, started to do some stuff at the end, but just wasn't the Concepcion that we've seen. I think, just not enough on this offense. You were looking for somebody to kind of make a play or do something, and they just couldn't do it.
They weren't able to do it. And look, I mean, there's no, when we've done these GigEm after parties, it's let's look forward to next week. Who's next on A&M's schedule? What do they need to correct? We're not at that point. The season's over, and it's an 11-2 year, but it's how they got to 11-2. Because if you told a lot of A&M fans, hey, playoff berth 11-2, I think a lot of people would have signed up for that. But to lose the last 2 against Texas on the road, again with an opportunity to make the SEC championship on the line, and to lose here at home, against a Miami team that really just couldn't do much offensively outside of big second half rushing game by Mark Fletcher. What do you think about the season overall, especially now that we've seen how it's ended?
Yeah, it's a complicated season to review. I think right now A&M fans would probably tell you this season just but I think in hindsight you can take some positives away. You can say, hey, 11 wins, that has not happened at this place very often, but it comes with a but they did this, but look how it ended, and I think the thing for A&M that is maybe the most daunting aspect of this might be your best team in the next couple of years, because look, they have 21 players who are set to expire their eligibility after this year. 12 of those players, I believe, 11 or 12 are starters for this team. There are a lot of starters. You're going to lose Zune. You're going to lose Crownover. You're going to lose probably KC. You're going to lose Regis, Yadam, Lee, Cassius Howe, of course, Dayan Hayes, Reed Adams. I mean, there are a lot of key contributors on this team you're going to have to replace, Le'Veon Moss, of course, as well. And so, it's one of those deals. Can they reload? We've seen them have a lot of success in the transfer portal. I know they want to eventually shift and be a little bit more reliant on high school recruiting than they've been, but you just look at it and you say, man, that's a lot of holes to fill. And they do have some guys that are coming back that are going to be great. I mean, Mario Craver, I reported earlier this week that he has re-signed with A&M. He's coming back. That'll be a huge deal for this team. Ashton Bethel-Roman, he should be coming back. That's great. Marcel Reed, of course. Ruben Owens will probably be back. But you're losing a lot of your defense. You're losing your O-line for the most part. We'll see if Chase Basanis declares. But a lot of guys are losing. And not just that, you're losing your offensive coordinator, you're losing your defensive coordinator, you're losing your tight ends coach, you're losing your secondary coach, in Peterson, and there could be a couple other moving pieces too. So it is significant turnover, and I think that's why this offseason is so critical for Mike Elko, because we see teams get here, we see teams have success in a flash in the pan year. It's whether they can sustain it. It's whether they can get back here, and elite programs do that. They know how to, keep refueling, and that'll be the question for Mike Elko. Is this a one-off where you had a great schedule and you had a bunch of seniors and you had, all these draft picks, or is this something that you can sustain? And I think there's optimism to say, hey, they're bringing back some key pieces, but they definitely have a lot of work cut out for them when it comes to the transfer portal.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Coach Elko there. He spoke with the media after the game. You listened to it. I was doing some other things during that time. Can you take me through Coach Elko and just what he had to say?
I think. Sorry, this guy's talking on the phone. I have no idea what you just said.
Yeah, just talking about Coach Elko's press conference. Yeah, that was interesting.
The whole stadium can hear him.
Yeah. Coach Elko's press conference, man. Anything that you took away from it? Any quotes that kind of stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I thought that he was obviously very frustrated. And one thing that he talked about was Marcel Reed saying that he still feels like he has a ways to go to hit his ceiling. And I thought that was interesting because, we have seen some great moments from Marcel Reed, but I think Mike would be the first to admit that these last couple games he did not play that well. He said that he was up and down, and I think that will be the big question of the offseason is, not just can they reload, but what version of Marcel Reed is going to be the Marcel Reed of the future? Because, again, there's been some good, but you got to get better because being so streaky, being so inconsistent, and being turnover prone, it's just not a recipe for success, especially if your defense can't make up with it with forcing turnovers. And 3 points in this game, 17 points against Texas, 7 points against Texas last year, the touchdown being on defense. That's just not going to cut it at quarterback. It's not going to cut it on offense. You got to get better. And the problem for him is the weapons around him could get worse. He could lose Casey Concepcion. Going to lose at least 3 offensive linemen, going to lose his top running back. So it will be a challenge to elevate. But, at the same time, he is just a redshirt sophomore. This was his first full season as a starter. So there certainly is a realistic chance that he could get a lot better between now and the season opener next season. But it's a question that people will be asking because of just how poorly this offense looked over the last couple of games.
I think that's something I keep coming back to is the timing of everything. Because if you flip the Notre Dame and Texas games, I know schedule-wise that's not how it works, but you had Texas earlier, lost that game, but then go on the road and beat Notre Dame, and then you lose this game right here. It's a hard, fought game. Regis isn't on it. I think you start to look at the season a little bit differently, but obviously that isn't how it played out. And in the first half of South Carolina has to be taken into account too. And also what we saw at Auburn and at different points in the season, like you mentioned there. I just kind of want to pass this along to you, Carter. Just your thoughts on what A&M kind of really needs to do in the off season. Like, what are going to be the main talking points that you think we're going to be discussing on GigEm247 these next few months?
Well, I think I want to talk about the portal really quick because it does open January 2nd. We've already seen a ton of movement. It feels like so many big quarterbacks are already declaring to be in the portal, right? It doesn't officially open until the 2nd. It'll be 15 days. There's only one portal period the whole offseason. And when you lose 21 guys, when you're losing half of your starters, you're really going to have to do a lot of work there. And you just look, right? Like, O-line, maybe you add some guys there after losing 3 starters. Maybe receiver, you help that out. I think you feel good about Craver and Ashton Bethel Roman, but can you get maybe that bigger outside receiver? Kind of miss that this season. Kind of, while these receivers were phenomenal, they didn't really have that guy that can jump up and go get it. defense, certainly D-end will be a question now that Howell, Hayes are gone. D-tackle, Regis and Onyedem both gone. That's I mean, if I'm looking at biggest needs, D-tackle might be number one. And certainly you feel good about like some guys coming up, like Landon Reed, get D-tackle. Like he showed some stuff. Dalen Evans, like he could become a player. Marco Jones flashed a lot at the end this year. But still, you might want more proven, more veteran guys there. Torian York, I asked him in the press conference if he plans to come back or if he plans to go to the NFL. He said he hasn't made that decision yet. Probably make that decision this week. And I would think he would come back. I spoke with Dane Brugler at The Athletic this week, covers the NFL draft. He doesn't think York is a surefire pick right now. Thinks, hey, maybe he can go, day 3, kind of late. But I think it would make sense for York to come back. Certainly from an NIL perspective, I think he would make more staying here than he would going to the NFL as potentially a late day 3 guy. So I would be kind of surprised if he went to the draft. And then, I think there's a lot of things you can point to. I mean, it's kicker. Man, kicker is man. But
it's all on both sides of the, both teams today.
Both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was kind of a hilarious game for the first 2.5 quarters because it was like, are they just going to keep missing field goals and the game's going to be 0-0? Like you think of the Frank Beamer meme where it's like 0-0 going into overtime and he's so excited. Like that's what this game felt like for half the game. And, to talk about the defense really quick, it felt like when Regis came out of the game, it almost felt like that was such a huge turning point where it's like ever since that happened, boom, they just ran the ball with ease. And Mark Fletcher, man, he was dominant and had the big 56-yard run that set up the final touchdown. We spoke with Jay Bateman after the game, and he said that they kind of went into this game with a light box mentality is what he called it. I think that they were so focused on shutting down Malachi Toney, who only had 22 receiving yards today.
Had the fumble too. Yeah.
Had the fumble. They were so focused on stopping him that and I was kind of surprised. I was like, how is Miami not giving Fletcher the ball? Because it seems like good things are happening every time it happens. And sure enough, midway through the third, fourth quarter, they started giving him the ball, and
it's like Trey Wisner, Texas, just a few weeks ago, just the second half. And
same exact thing.
Yeah, the lanes were just I saw it on the field throughout, that second half. The lanes were wide open. I mean, I could have ran through a couple of those lanes. Credit to him, for what he was able to do on that 56-yard run. And he made some big plays, but A&M kind of made it easy in that second half at times.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that sticks with me about this team, on both sides of the ball, they're streaky and they are aggressive. And let me rephrase. So, offensively, streaky, right? We've seen the highs, we've seen the lows. They're so built on the big play that I think both sides, on offense, they're built for giving it to Craver and Concepcion, letting them cook and getting these long, the big pass to Craver. That's their bread and butter. They want to have big plays. They wanted to get it to their guys in space, let them break tackles, spin move, and run for a big gain. That's their thing. But if you can kind of shorten, if you can play deep and kind of limit those explosive plays and say, hey, beat us methodically, drive the whole way down the field. A&M can't do that because they can't run the ball. They have penalties occasionally. And, Reed has struggled with accuracy. Defensively, they hunt for the big plays as well. They're number 1 in sacks, number 2 in TFLs, but they're almost so aggressive as a defense that they'll give up these big running lanes. They'll give up these opportunities where they'll get, in the first half, they had 2 sacks, but in the second half, they're just running wild on them. It is a winning formula where it's almost like a basketball team that's extremely reliant on the three-pointer. And, hey, when the three is going in, it's the best team of all time.
Yeah.
But when it's not, it's the worst team of all time. And that's what this team feels like on both sides of the ball. And certainly the defense today, a lot more good than bad. Again, to give up 10 points, can't put a whole lot on them. And they made a play toward the end of the game where Dalton Brooks strips the ball, and you felt like that play was going to shift things. The offense just couldn't get it done. And you know, at the end of the day, the offense had so many opportunities to get points on the board, and they just couldn't do it.
I don't know if you felt this way, but watching them in the first half, you know, my big takeaway when I went into the locker room there to look at some of the photos I took, this wasn't a championship team. I think it was pretty clear in that first half they couldn't win the championship. If they would have lost to Ohio State by double digits, 14 points next week. Yeah. So that was kind of the main takeaway I had. I think, you know, what's interesting, though, is you mentioned about how this team is streaky. So you've seen games where, you know, it's a 41-40 against Notre Dame, you know, or 45-40 against Arkansas, or 16-10 against Auburn. Do you think if this would have been like one of those early games, you know, like the Notre Dame-Arkansas game, where it was high scoring, but Miami, you know, just beats them out barely, the A&M fans would feel a little bit more optimistic going into the next season? You know, considering, you know, like, you're losing Colin Klein, you know, offensive coordinator, and you know, you have new OC and the struggles that Reed has showed. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I definitely think, like, if it was 27-24 and, you know, both teams had their moments, like, I don't think people would be as upset. I mean, Miami's like not a bad football team. I predicted A&M to win by 4. Like, it wasn't like, I know Miami barely got in, but you know, they were the best team in the ACC this year, and you know, they through the first half of the season they looked like the best team in the country. So they certainly have it in them. They've been playing well for about a month now. Yeah. A&M's been playing poorly for about a month now. So you also think of that. But yeah, I think like overall, it's definitely one of those things where you lose by 7, depending on what it looks like. Maybe it's not a big deal, but when it's 10-3, you can't run the ball. You give up 7 sacks.
Can't make a field goal.
You know, and you feel like you could have won this game. And again, that's not me saying like, oh, A&M's better than Miami and they 9 out of 10 they win. I'm not saying that. It's just more of a, man, you judge the first half, the way things were going, A&M could have been up 13-0, and then all of a sudden Miami can't run the ball because they're having to throw a lot because they're down in the second half, but that just didn't happen. And that's another thing. That's what this team's been built on. They get a big lead, or they take a lead, and then the other offense has to go pass heavy, and you know, and then Cassius Howell and those guys could cook, but it just didn't happen. They couldn't get that lead. They couldn't get that cushion, and that's what led to them just leaning on Fletcher once they realized, hey, we can run the ball on him.
Absolutely. Carter, we're going to be asking a lot of questions in the coming weeks during the offseason. And GigEm247 is going to be providing plenty of coverage from this one and Texas A&M's portal efforts, what they've done on the recruiting trail. They actually landed a commitment today.
I know.
During the game, yeah.
Yeah.
had to leave the game to cover that one. Miles Smith, 2027 defensive lineman out of California, committed to A&M. I think it was late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter. And we'll continue to be providing recruiting coverage and post-game coverage as well. Carter, anything that you'd like to add before we sign off?
I just thank you guys for watching. You know, for me, it was a fun season. You know, always enjoyed to have this as a job. So appreciate you guys watching, and it's been cool this is Joseph's first season, so you know, been cool to have him along. And the crowd today was really cool for an 11 a.m. game. I mean, it was as great as you could expect. This offense didn't give them enough to cheer for. I think the loudest cheer the whole day was when Randy Bond made his 35-yard field goal. But yeah, so that should tell you something. But it was a fun year, and
piggybacking off what you said there, credit to the 12th man for what they showed today, and also just for welcoming in me and, you know, early on in the season. A few games in after that Notre Dame win. I really appreciate it. Can't wait for my first full season next year. We're going to sign off now, but thank you all for everyone who tuned in, who commented on our live stream. Once again, we're going to have plenty of coverage on GigEm247, which you can get an annual membership for 50% off now. Just go to GigEm247.com. For Karels, Joseph Hastings, signing off. We'll see you all next season.